Hi, my name is Matt Davis, and I'm an account director with My Amazon Guy. And today we're going to talk about large accounts optimization after initial setup for a PPC campaign, and we're going to do it in under 10 minutes. So what we have here is just an actual client of ours that we work with. And what we have here are some initial campaign setups. And the reason I want to point your attention here is something a little bit unique. The reason for this date range is this is actually the 11th. This Monday was our first day with this client. That's when we went in and did all our initial segmentation. So I just want to solve for the data specifically our agency is responsible for. Ordinarily, this might be either a 7-day or a 30-day window, depending on sort of what your objectives are when you're working in that ad account. At times, each will be appropriate. And then the other big filter I want to point your attention to is just the active status enabled, meaning I just only want to see accounts that are currently running. I don't care about any paused accounts, any old accounts, right? And then the other thing I want to point you to is the portfolios tab up here. You can do a lot of organization tricks. You can do settings, all based on portfolio. So make sure you take some time to organize products and campaigns when you create them into portfolios. We usually organize them by product. However works for you is fine, but take use of that portfolio tab. It's not a mandatory option, but it will help you organize and segment, which in Amazon PPC is largely the name of the game. Okay. At the top level, it's important to check your settings first. Sometimes you might want to put a hard cap on some of your sponsored product campaigns. At the account level, it will also let you set your bidding strategies, not at the account level, at the campaign level, excuse me. It will also let you, settings tabs, will also let you set your bidding strategies. I usually recommend dynamic up and down. What that means is that will allow you to up or lower your bid in real time based on Amazon's calculation on how likely you are to win the sale. So if you were to be more conservative, you might go dynamic down only, which only allows Amazon to lower a bid to save you money, not raise a bid to potentially win you a target. I prefer dynamic up and down. Fixed bids are almost a no-go for any situation other than sort of rare exceptions. And then usually in the initial startup phase, we don't recommend that you put too much emphasis on product placement, either top of search or product pages. It really just depends on, unless you have a specific strategy, but especially in that early going when you're just really trying to accumulate data, you don't want to muddy the water by bid placement. Really, you want to control for variables. Once you've got a stream of data that you're fairly confident with and you want to go back and do some A/B testing, then it might be meaningful because then the results will tell you something. Okay, so let's jump back out to all campaigns. So when you have a large account, and what do I mean when I say a large account? I just mean a large number of campaigns to deal with. Large number of SKUs, large number of targets, lots of things going on, right? Especially when you're new to Amazon PPC, it can kind of be intimidating to jump in here. Keep in mind here, you can customize your columns. So everybody has sort of different things that they like to look at when they're looking at data. You can always customize it, right? So get it to a place where you have the data points that are important to you. First of all, this has been running for about a week. The number one thing I'm going to be looking for is, am I out of budget anywhere? So far, we're looking pretty good. And, the top line metrics on this account so far, we're doing pretty well, right? In the last 6 days, we spent about $450, and we've generated about $2,600 in ad revenue on that. 86,000 impressions. It's almost nearly a 6-to-1 return. So most, depending on your margins, right? Each company, each product, each business model is a little bit different, but sort of industry-wide, those are considered pretty healthy metrics. Okay, so really what I want to do here, especially when I have a lot going on, is I want to organize, especially in an optimization, I want to start by organizing on spend. Biggest spend first. There's not really a right or wrong way to do this. Again, whatever helps you live in the data. For me, it's spend. I know if I were wanting to look at success rate, I might organize by orders or sales, or even ACOS. But to me, if I'm coming in to optimize, I want to see where the money's going, like a Wall Street Journal reporter, right? You want to see where the money's going, because win, lose, or draw, those are usually your most important accounts, right? If they're big spenders, it almost doesn't matter. In terms of importance, it almost doesn't matter if they're winning or losing. Those are your most important accounts, or campaigns, excuse me, in my opinion. So I'm always going to start by sorting for spend. Then once I have it organized by spend, the next thing I'm going to do is just look at the ACOS, really, or the ROAS, which, I mean, those are inverses of the same statistic, so whichever one you like better. Just sort of look at the top line ACOS, right? How are we doing health-wise? Really depends on business model, but this 40 is a bit high. 37, now a bit of context, this is a new campaign or a new account, and this is an auto campaign. So 37% ACOS is actually really healthy, right? The purpose of an auto campaign, especially early on, is to gather targeting data, right? To learn where we're going to be successful with the customers and where we're not, and also to get eyes on page. And clearly we're doing that. It's our #1 impression garnering account, it looks like. Or sorry, campaign. I keep saying account. I apologize for the confusion in terminology there. So you've got your 26,000 impressions, your #1. If I was going to go in here, these are already looking pretty successful, but I will start by spend, right? And I'm just looking. Another thing that you probably want to do is have a notepad out. Again, it doesn't really matter what your technique is. For me, having a notepad out so I can make notes while I'm moving through the navigator is something that I find valuable. Up to you how you want to do it. But have even if it's a pen and paper, have something where you can take notes, a note-taking program, whatever works for you, so you can make notes as you move through the account. If you try and make changes all in real time as you note needs for changes, it's going to take you forever. Okay, so we jump in here, and this is an auto campaign. So first of all, I'm always going to look at campaign settings and make sure that they're the right way. Right, that all looks good. Okay, so now I'm going to back out. Have there been any optimizations? If there's no negative targeting, chances are nobody's optimized it yet, and that would make sense because these campaigns have only been running for about 6 days again. So I'm going to jump into the data here, or jump into the ad placements. And another thing that you want to make sure to note for, right, is brand personality. You want to make sure that every target in an individual ad group has a high relevancy relationship. Right, so all these in this ad group auto within this campaign, these are all the targets selected. It might be intuitive that these should all be cash, money, bath bomb, right? But I've seen a lot of accounts, a lot of even ad marketers go in and make this mistake where they will have cash, money, bath bomb, and then Epsom salt bath bomb, and then bath toys, and then loofahs and cleaning accessories, right? Things that are loosely related, but if they are not highly related, you're going to muddy the water. Your targeting data will not be as relevant in terms of you're going to hurt your own relevancy, so it's going to be hard to know if targets are really ineffective or if you've just sort of voluntarily muddied the water. So make sure that any products that are in the same ad group just have a high degree of relationship, right? Even things that as depends on the product, but even things as subtle as variance, if it's enough to where it will change the type of consumer behavior that leads to finding the product, you probably don't want them in the same ad group. So then I'm going to look at targeting. Right, and with auto campaigns, basically what we're looking at is I just want to see what type of targets, right? Loose match, substitute, close match, and complement. That's just a fancy way of saying auto keyword targets or auto product targets, right? That's all that is. With Amazon PPC, you're always targeting either a keyword, which is a consumer search term, or you're targeting a product or a brand, right? There's not a lot of demographic targeting that Amazon allows you to do. Amazon views your customers on Amazon as their customers. So, but all that is to say, this is just a fancy way of saying we're going to auto-target keywords. We're going to auto-target related products. So with an auto campaign, if you want to see what's actually winning and losing, you need to go to the search terms report, which is right here. In Seller Central, you can also find that in your advertising reports, which at a macro level is another really valuable tool to garnering data. Okay, so now I'm in the search terms report. Again, I'm going to check and make sure, are my dates still consistent, right? That's another thing, is you can screw yourself up if flying between tabs, multiple tabs. You've got different time windows captured. Okay, so now in this screen, I could organize by spend, but my suspicion is that's only going to tell me, on an auto target especially, you expect to spend in a lot of places and not win very many. Now this is actually sort of an exception here, in that it looks like my top spender also happens to be my top order getter. But the reality is, in the search terms report specifically, I might organize by orders, because I want to see the winners first. Auto campaign, again, especially if it's 37% ACOS, which is actually on that many impressions, that's actually pretty darn good for week number 1 for a wide net auto campaign. Which, as you can see, why do I say wide net? It's because we had all 4 targets, possible auto targets, active. Right? We had close match, loose match, complacent, and substitutes. So what I'm seeing here is these are potential heroes to pull out. Right? And what do I say? What do I mean when I say hero? I mean a target that is winning at a high enough percentage that it really needs to be pulled out and put in its own campaign. That way you can guarantee that 100% of the spend for that campaign is going just to that one specific target, so you can get hyper efficient. Right now, this 7 impressions, 4 orders, that's really effective. This target right here should be pulled out and should be made a hero product target, manual campaign. So what I'm going to do, remember when I said earlier, have your notepad out. I've got my hero campaigns up. I'll do my keyword, and I'll do my product. Okay, so product there, and then this guy here, that's not quite as good. That's roughly flat on ACOS, so I might let that one go. But it did still generate 2 orders. I don't know that I'd call that a hero. I might call that a possible target. So whether or not I stand that up in an individual campaign is going to basically depend on how aggressive I want to be with my spend and how well I'm doing with my current targets and how well that matches up with the client expectations, right? So is the client happy with the growth? Is the client more concerned, or are you more concerned about efficiency? Do you already have a good number of targets that you feel are sort of juicy that you can win on, or are you sort of like scraping the edges where you've already identified and tried to maximize the leverage on all the really obvious juicy targets, and now you're just sort of looking for additional places where you can maybe add a few percentage points in your revenue, right? Okay, so you can see what we're doing here. We're looking at orders, we're looking at clicks, and usually, right, what I'm looking at is I'm comparing the number of impressions to clicks, and then how many orders that translates into, and I'm also looking at ACOS. So I'm sort of looking at all those numbers combined, but certainly where you have, you know, 5% ACOS, right? That's a really long tail, non-intuitive keyword, right? And so that's the value of auto campaigns, really, is they're going to clue you into targets that might not be intuitive, but 300 impressions, 4 clicks, and 1 order, that might be something I want to pull out and use later, right? We'll call that a possible for now. Alright, so I'll come back out and I'll go to just, so you would do that all the way down and just identify places where you might possibly want to either increase targets. And now the reason I didn't do what you would normally do a lot of, which is identifying bad targets and adding negatives, is just because so far we're week number 1. I still want to garner more impressions, and the efficiency's actually been pretty darn good. So I'm not too worried in this specific case about efficiency. But if you were worried about efficiency, you might come in and say, okay, let me just go to let me find a big loser. So let me organize by spend. Now the reality is $7 is not a lot, but it does look like we got 19 clicks and no orders. That's approaching the place of negative, where it's, for whatever reason, we just don't like this term for this product, right? Because it's not returning well. 19 clicks and no orders. What that means to me is, basically 20 people got to it, and for whatever reason we're like, this isn't really what I'm looking for. So if I wanted to do that, I would just say add a negative keyword. Right? It'll usually, sometimes it'll give you suggested, but I just don't. Right? Always negative exact, never negative phrase, negative broad, always negative exact. Okay. So then I'm going to go back to all campaigns, and I'm going to organize by spend again, and I'm just going to do one more to show you how to do it on a manual, and then that will pretty much be the gist. You would work your way down by spend, and the reality is, even on big accounts, the most of the time, 80% of your spend is going to be in your top 8 to 10 campaigns. That's just usually how it works out. So, I mean, you can see right here, we spent in the last 6 days on this account a total of $458, and $166 is in that campaign that we just visited, right? 64, 58, 51. It starts to quickly drop off a cliff. By the time you get down to 8, 9, 10, you're at almost an inconsequential amount of spend. Right, so the reality is this isn't a huge account, but even in huge accounts, the reality is that you can spend your time, if your concern is how do I manage 5,000 product groups, the reality is in one sitting you probably don't. You focus on the highest leverage. It's the classic 80-20 rule, right? You focus on the most important campaigns, and what are they? What do you mean when you say most important? To me, that's spend, and you focus on the top spenders, and you optimize them by adding negative exacts where you're bleeding, and by pulling out hyper winners, possible winners, and making them exact targets in their own campaigns. Okay, so this looks like a broad match keyword target. Again, I'm going to jump into settings. $20 budget, all that looks good. You can add budget rules too. I usually think in the beginning to leave that alone. That's sort of like phase 2, 3 once you've had 90 days, 180 days of data. Okay. Oh, the other thing, I apologize, I'm jumping the gun here. Placements. Oh no, sorry. That's in targeting. So we'll jump into the ad group. Again, check the relevancy. That all looks good. Targeting. Okay. So while this looks fairly healthy, the one thing I'll say is this starts to, like, broad. This is a bit of a long keyword for a broad. This looks to me more like an exact, but let's just see what it's doing. Yeah. I don't know that I would negative this yet. I don't think we have enough data. And overall, let's see. Overall, this campaign is still really efficient. 18% ACOS. Again, it's important to remember that if you just pause, and that's why I prefer negative exacts than pausing in general. But anytime you end a target or an ad group, any sort of spend, yes, you are ending inefficiency. Yes, you are stopping bleed, but you are also ending impressions, which is when you get down to it, that's eyes on page, which matters. So that can affect your organic keyword indexing. It can affect your organic ranking and how well your product does non-ad spend. So it's important to keep that in mind. and not only look at ACoS in a vacuum. Yes, ACoS matters, but you want to take it in collaboration with all the other statistics. So this is a high spend. I'm going to keep my eye on this target, and I do think that this is a bit long. This should probably be an exact target. I don't know why they made this a broad. Usually once you get beyond 4 or 5 words in a keyword phrase, you're getting sort of the outside effectiveness of a broad search. Money Bath Bomb is a little bit better, and you can see we're doing really well with that one. So Money Bath Bomb, to me, that's a potential hero exact, right? So come back to my notepad. Bang. And then this is double bidding, right? This is a broad match. So Money Bath Bomb, you're already targeting here. So this is essentially, this needs to be paused. You could pause this one, but as a broad match, this is a better fit, right? So anytime that, if this is broad, anytime that somebody's searching Money Bath Bomb, you're already pinging here. So this is basically cannibalizing your own targeting. So that, by the way, is why we're not getting any orders, because anytime that we've had success, it's getting attributed to this Money Bath Bomb here. So this is essentially just wasted spend. So you can see the process of what I'm doing, though. I'm going down and just looking for anomalies, effectively, things that are abnormally successful or abnormally unsuccessful. I'm adding to negative exact the unsuccessful ones, and I'm looking to pull out the hyper successful ones and make them their own hero campaigns. So right now I'm going to leave this alone. Again, we're not really spending much beyond these two guys, and I'm going to keep my eye on this guy. This one's potentially on the chopping block. It is a high ACoS. I think the relevancy on this term is really high. That's why I'm going to leave it running, even though this probably is too long to be a broad match. It should probably just be bath bombs as the broad search, or bath bomb surprise. You know, broad means as long as those terms are present, all present. It doesn't matter the order. It doesn't matter what else is in the search phrase. So usually with broad search in particular, you never really need more than 3 or 4 terms. Okay. So then later I would go back and pull out these guys, and I would look to make these individual. I would create an individual, for sure. I would create an individual. I will create an individual hero, keyword hero exact target for Money Bath Bomb. Right? That's of course after I go through all these campaigns, assuming it's not already created somewhere down here. And then the other thing that I'm going to look for right off the bat, so I'm going down the list by spend, but it's the same thing, right? You're looking for hyper anomalies. So one thing that caught my eye was this new stat is, I really like it, top of search, right? This can tell you where you're dominating, and in some categories you're going to be like, some products, some clients I have, they're under 5% down the board, and then it doesn't matter. But so really this guy right here jumps out at me, 88% with only 670 impressions. So this one I would probably go in, rather than looking to add negatives, I would probably go in and look to add ways to add impressions. So right off the bat, what do I notice? Dynamic down. I'm going to change that to dynamic up and down for sure. Right. Again, why? Why am I doing that? Let's jump back out. I just want to make it clear. Is I'm showing up top of search 88% of those searches, and my impressions are really low. I didn't even look at the ACoS. My suspicion is it's great, but let's just see. Two orders. Let me scoop this over. I apologize. These campaign windows are not the easiest to navigate with. Actually, not the greatest ACoS. 41%. But I have a feeling that's also related to the fact that we're not getting enough impressions. So I'm going to find out why. Again, it's just low impressions and we're winning that much of the search, to me that says, how do we get more search? Okay, so this is why it's a defensive, and that makes total sense for why we're top of the search. There's probably a lot of brand searching in here. And it looks like only one ASIN is really giving us any sort of pushback at all, or any sort of traffic at all. So that explains the low impression count. And the only thing I would want to do is maybe up the bid. It looks like we're already sort of over the average range. So that explains it. It was a defensive campaign. But the rule of looking for anomalies is really the point of that, and it still holds true. So again, looking down the list, all those look pretty good. I would probably go in and look at these guys and just see if there are hero targets to pull out and make exacts. That will be largely repeating the process we just underwent, and so I'm going to end the video here. Please let me know, guys, if you have any questions